A client of mine, I'll call her Margaret, had her bank account targeted by scammers a few months ago, and the level of detail they had about her life was genuinely unsettling. I want to walk you through exactly what happened because the story itself reveals something important about why this particular type of fraud has become so much harder to spot. And then I want to give you 4 specific things you can do to protect yourself. I'm Linda Foster, and the call came in while Margaret was sitting at her kitchen table, not long after she'd started receiving her late husband's survivor benefit. Her bank's fraud department, or so it appeared, told her several attempted purchases had just shown up on her debit card. A big box electronics store, an Apple retailer, a home goods chain. She confirmed she hadn't made any of them. The representative said they blocked the charges immediately, no problem at all. Then they told her something far more alarming. The same person attempting those purchases was also trying to wire $50,000 out of her account. She was transferred to what they called the wire fraud division. The next person on the line said they needed to verify her identity. And to do that, they read her information back to her. Her email address, including a private one she almost never gives out. Her home address. Her cell phone number. Sitting there, she told me later she thought, "This has to be real. They know everything about me." Then they said they'd text her a link to confirm her identity, which sounded completely ordinary, since plenty of legitimate institutions do send verification texts these days. But Margaret paused. She said, "I'm not going to click on anything until you verify something for me. What was the last deposit into my account?" The line went dead immediately. It had all been a scam from the start. What stuck with both of us afterward wasn't just that it happened, it was how professional it was. No foreign accent, no broken English, nothing that would normally raise a flag. They knew her bank, her private email, her home address, her cell number. And the question that kept nagging at me afterward was simple. How did they know so much? This matters specifically for widows and widowers because the data is clear that recently bereaved people, alongside retirees more broadly, are targeted at a meaningfully higher rate than younger adults. Scammers know that a major life transition often means new accounts being set up, new paperwork being processed, and a person who may be managing finances independently for the first time in years. According to the Federal Trade Commission's most recent reporting, Americans lost more than $12.5 billion to fraud in 2024, a 25% jump from the year before. And I want to be precise here because that's only what got reported. The FTC itself acknowledges that most fraud never gets reported at all, often because people feel embarrassed, which means the real number is considerably higher. For older adults specifically, reported losses hit $2.4 billion in 2024. Nearly 4 times what it was back in 2020. And because so much fraud goes unreported, the FTC's own estimate suggests the true cost to older adults that year could be as high as $81.5 billion. So back to my original question, how do they know so much about us? Around the same time Margaret and I were untangling what happened to her, I came across an interview with a cybersecurity researcher discussing something called the National Public Data Breach. You've probably never heard of National Public Data, and you've certainly never knowingly done business with them. But they're what's called a data broker, a company that quietly scrapes and buys up personal information, then sells access to it. In 2024, that company was hacked. The breach reportedly involved nearly 3 billion records, including full names, current and past addresses, phone numbers, dates of birth, and social security numbers for a staggering number of people, with researchers estimating the breach touched something like 270 million unique individuals across the US, UK, and Canada. If you want to check whether your own information appeared in this specific breach, there's a free lookup tool created specifically for it at npd.pentester.com, where you can search your name and state. Another widely trusted, independently run resource for checking across many breaches at once, not just this one, is haveibeenpwned.com, run by a respected security researcher and used broadly across the cybersecurity community. I'd encourage using the free resources first and being cautious before paying anyone for a deeper data removal service until you've researched their reputation directly. So given that this kind of information about you and me is being bought, sold, and breached on a regular basis, What can actually be done? Based on the guidance I trust most on this topic, here are 4 things worth doing. Step 1, and this is a big one, freeze your credit. Here's why this matters so much. The scariest thing a criminal can do with your stolen information often isn't draining what's already sitting in your bank account. It's opening up entirely new credit in your name. Cards, loans, lines of credit you never authorized. Until a collection agency eventually calls demanding payment on debt you never knew existed. A credit freeze shuts that door completely. When your credit is frozen, any lender trying to pull your file hits a wall. No file, no new account approved. Unfreezing is genuinely simple. You go to each of the 3 major credit bureaus, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Create a free account, and there's a button that says, Freeze my credit. Click it. If you ever need to unfreeze it, for instance to apply for a loan, you click Thaw, and you can even set it to automatically refreeze on a specific date afterward. 3 things worth knowing. It's completely free. Federal law has required this since 2018, so if anyone tries to charge you for it, you're in the wrong place. It does not hurt your credit score in any way, despite a persistent myth otherwise. And you have to do this separately at all 3 bureaus. Freezing one does not freeze the others. The whole process, once you have accounts set up, takes roughly 10 minutes total. If you've never done it before, expect closer to 20 or 30 minutes the first time through. I want to mention something specific here for widows and widowers. If your spouse recently passed away, both your individual credit file and any jointly held accounts may need attention. It's worth checking whether your deceased spouse's credit file has been properly marked as deceased with the credit bureaus, since an unmarked file can sometimes be specifically targeted by what's called ghosting fraud, where someone uses a deceased person's identity to open new credit. The Social Security Administration typically notifies the credit bureaus of a death, but confirming this directly, rather than assuming it happened automatically, adds an extra layer of protection during an already vulnerable period. Step 2. Clean up your data trail. A credit freeze stops new accounts from being opened, but it doesn't address the underlying problem, which is that your information is sitting on hundreds of data broker sites, just waiting to be breached again, the way national public data was. There are services specifically built to find where your data lives across these sites and request its removal on your behalf. I want to set realistic expectations here. This isn't a one-time fix. Your data gets relisted and brokers rescrape it, which is exactly why these services typically operate on an ongoing subscription rather than a single payment, similar to routine maintenance rather than a permanent solution. If you value your privacy and have the budget for it, this is genuinely worth considering. But go in understanding it reduces your exposure rather than eliminating it entirely. Step 3. Lock down your Social Security account specifically. Here's a threat that surprisingly few people have thought through, and it's particularly relevant if you've recently started receiving a survivor benefit. A criminal with enough of your personal information can attempt to create an account at ssa.gov in your name before you ever do. Once inside, they could potentially change your mailing address, alter your direct deposit information, and reroute your benefit check into an account that isn't yours. So here's what I'd recommend. First, if you haven't created your own account at ssa.gov yet, do it today, because if you don't claim it, someone else potentially could. This matters even more if you've recently filed for survivor benefits, since that transition period, when a new claim is being set up and processed, is exactly when fraudulent activity can be hardest to immediately notice. Beyond that, the Social Security Administration offers additional protective blocks you can request. One is an eServices block, which prevents anyone, including you, from viewing or changing your information online. Another is a direct deposit fraud prevention block, which stops anyone from altering where your benefit gets deposited. I want to be honest about the trade-off here. These blocks are powerful, but they're also genuinely inconvenient, because removing them later typically requires visiting a Social Security office in person, rather than handling it by phone or online. If you believe your information is already circulating out there, which for most of us is realistically the case given how widespread these breaches have become, it may be worth accepting that inconvenience as the cost of stronger protection. At minimum, claim your account today even if you decide against the additional blocks. While you're addressing the government side of things, one more step takes just a few minutes. Get an IRS Identity Protection PIN. It's a 6-digit number, and once you have it, the IRS won't accept any tax return filed under your Social Security number unless that PIN is included. This directly addresses a growing problem where criminals file a fraudulent tax return and claim someone else's refund before the real person ever gets the chance to file. The IRS now recommends this for everyone, not just people who've already been victims of identity theft. Step 4, and this is genuinely the one that matters most, because it's exactly what saved Margaret. Steps 1 through 3 are valuable, but none of them are locks on the door in the moment a scammer actually calls. What broke the scam targeting Margaret wasn't a credit freeze. It was one sentence. "Can you verify something for me first? What was the last deposit into my account? Make them prove who they are." Here's a rule worth writing down. Your bank, the IRS, the Social Security Administration, Medicare, none of them will ever call and demand you verify yourself on the spot. Click a link they just texted you, or move money anywhere to keep it safe. If there's urgency, if you're told to act now, if you're told not to hang up or tell anyone, that is a scam, virtually every single time. When that call comes in, and statistically it eventually will, do one thing: hang up and call the number printed on the back of your card or on your official Social Security statement, whatever you're trying to verify. Not any number the caller gave you, not a number from a text. Look up the number yourself, independently, from an official source. A real institution will never be offended that you want to verify it's genuinely them. That single habit puts you back in control, because the entire scam playbook depends on urgency overriding your judgment before you have time to think clearly. Let me bring this together. Freeze your credit at all 3 bureaus. It's free. And if you're recently widowed, confirm your late spouse's file has been properly marked as deceased too. Look into cleaning up your data trail through a reputable removal service if that fits your situation. Lock down your Social Security account, especially if you've recently begun receiving survivor benefits, and grab an IRS Identity Protection PIN. And build the habit that beats almost every version of this fraud. Make them prove it. Every single time, no exceptions. One more thing worth mentioning. If you have grown children or other trusted family members, it's worth setting up a personal verification question between you, something only a real family member would know the answer to, specifically for moments when someone calls claiming a relative is in trouble and needs money urgently. The same logic applies whether the scammer is impersonating a bank or impersonating someone you love. If this was useful, share it with someone you care about, particularly a widow or widower managing their own finances independently for the first time. And I'd genuinely like to know, has someone in your life been targeted by something like this? What did the call sound like, and what specific steps have you taken to protect yourself? I read through what people share, and it helps shape what I cover next. I'll see you in the next one.